University Student Union's Representative Council meeting, 9/2017. Hopefully the last meeting for this Representative Council. Thursday the 14th of December, and it's 17:20 in the meeting. Moving to item 2, recording members of the Council who are unavailable, disqualified, ineligible, resigned and present. Nico will list after names. I think I counted 25 persons just now. One person who was present and the chairperson rated the Secretary General as a good streak by asking. Whose name was not said? Yes, your name was said, but just so fast. Laapat and Saari. And just looked who were present and that was there enough. So we have 25 members of the Representative Council present. Any other persons present who wish to have the right to speak and right to be present? There's the head of the financial manager, interpreters and OPS person. We have the right to be present and to speak. Closing item 2. Moving to item 3, recording the lawfulness and quorum of the meeting. The Representative Council meeting is lawful. There are at least 25 persons present, and the chairperson is lawfully summoned if the invitation has been published 7 days prior on the bulletin board, email and website. These conditions have been met, so the meeting is lawful and has quorum. Closing item 3, moving to item 4, summoning two scrutinizer of the minutes and 2 counters of votes. Any suggestions, Filman? Saari available. Nari also available as a deputy of the vote counter. And the vote counters, please. Say that this will be very easy this time. Raise your hands, please. Yes, I'm a volunteer. Plainen from Skisma. Saadaan Lappalainen or the vote counters. The right side or Matilda or what should I write down? So we have enough persons. So the scrutineers of the minutes are Filman and Saari, their deputies are Matilda Sade and Lappalainen, and vote counters are Matilda Sade, Lappalainen and Filman and Saari are their deputies. Closing item 4, move to item 5, confirming the agenda of the meeting. So the agenda has been delivered with the invitation to the meeting. And I propose that we'll have a meeting break after item 11, where we'll also order food for the after party at that point. I think it's probably okay to have a meeting break then, and the agenda has been approved. Closing item 5, move to item 6, announcements. And first I'd like to announce myself that this is most likely the last meeting for this Representative Council, so thank you everyone for the term, and at the end of the meeting we'll have some kind of a remembrances kind of presents for you. I'd also like to announce that after the meeting you are all welcome to our central office. We're having refreshments and music and food and laid back, just hanging out after this hard representation council term. I'd also like to announce that the student union has now a new board and a new chairperson, and also section chairpersons have been elected. So congratulations to them. I'd like to announce that the chairpersons, vice chairpersons of this term have done a good job, and I'd like to thank them. You're making me blush. Any other announcements? No. Closing item 6. Nico, did you write it all down? Yes. You write faster than you call out the names. Moving to item 7, latest news from the central office. So, Joona, could you please come up here to present them? Yes, the last slides for me. Those are our Independence Day. When we were there, we were in the procession on the Independence Day, carrying the torch. Short news, kind of essential information. All of our new recruitment going on. We've started new ones. We have for advocacy and communications chief, and also standing for our communications officer, and also standing for our organization expert, and also recruitment of sales coordinator. We also have a new IT expert recruited, Petteri Nummela. It's been mentioned before that I know something. So no graphic designer, that is. And with all the board, we had a workshop with them for the entire day about this starting strategic work, which is called Exploring Aalto 2035. Because we don't want to kind of scare people off by making a new strategy and saying that we want to abolish our old work. But next year, the student union can also take part when Aalto does analysis of their operation environment. Also, the educational ministry will also be there to have this education vision, which will be specified next year, and the actual strategy for 2019. Because the current strategy's term ends in 2020, so it's time to make a new one. And notable changes, all this picture from yesterday. Because of changes in the board of Aalto University. So Kvanter and Bengt Holmström, their 3 trimesters will end, so they won't be in the board anymore. And we gave this kind of seal of approvals for them, for the work done for the students and teachers, and education. And Saku's background is that in '98, he was chairperson of the TKY student union. I had good connections with also our student unions. I met him before each meeting, and in the future, Sari Baldo will hopefully take the similar role. Sorry, a successful businesswoman. She's a member of the AYYE honorary delegation also. It's a good contact to have. The second person I haven't met yet, and I don't know him, is Karel Luyben from the Netherlands. Better remembers the university better. Yes, many questions for the office, for the board? Apparently not. So we're just wrapping up the year. Oh, was this your only slide? Okay, yes. Yes, this is the once again slide, and the next board will... It's kind of an updated agenda at the start of next year for the next representation council. Yes, so thank you. So if there are no questions or other requests for floor, so I won't leave yet. No other requests for floor. Closing discussion, making a decision. The Representative Council decided to place on record the board's report on the latest news from the central office. This has been decided. Closing item 7, moving to item 8, latest news from the committees. Petteri couldn't make it here, so Jonas will tell us something about the committees. Petteri, because he's tech, because of his new tasks, kind of a glug malt wine drinking there. So, news from the committees. I don't really have time to go through them that in detail, but the advocacy committee as I started wrapping up the year, started collecting feedback. Community committee has gone through the feedback, processed it, and hoped that next year the task of the committee would be clarified for next year, and scheduling the year that what should be done at which part of the year, and this should be done in cooperation with the committee and the board. And this will be the communication channel, the individual persons. That's how we communicate. The representative council for the committees, you should also think about that in the future. The financial real estate committee has talked about the issues today, about the student center and about other real estate projects. So there are no specific highlights for them. Kind of this basic news. So no one have any questions, requests for floor? No. Making the decision. The representative council decided to place on record the board's report on the latest news from the committees. It's been decided. Closing item 8, moving to item 9, news on the brand work project. So Nora, please. Yeah, we're starting to the finishing lines of this project. Yeah, so last time with these slides. So what has happened since last time? Well, with this kind of publication event, the Tripoli's Independence Day celebration, we kind of a preview on how it has gone and what is in the future. It was received well. We also defined our KPIs and worked on the manual. What's KPI? Those are kind of indicators. So what are they? We have 5 minutes left, so we took the strategy and defined indicators for all of them, everything there. That's how have we succeeded in this sentence. So we very much in detail defined the indicators, and we intend to try to measure them next year. Yes, the workout manual. Henrik is wrapping it up in December, and we'll have it published before New Year. And the last bits this year, we are putting together the manual, and Oleg will design these design works and kind of a big picture that what is, for example, in our logos, that how many colors we have, how we can extend our visual outlook, kind of our restrictions and things like that. Oleg is trying to define as kind of instructions and templates. And well, it's already a comprehensive package that we're trying to do. That could be used as a tool by the office that has certain files and certain visual elements. So our designers and people at office, it would be easy for them to use. Today we'll also confirm the party who will do our websites, so we can start it at the start of next year and finish during spring. And also tried also hold the introduction of familiarization to my successor for example, who is in charge like of management groups and with a strategic responsibility, and yes, the chief for advocacy and communications. So this implementation has a big part. It is start from the management. They have to commit themselves to our strategic objectives and indicators, and the worker needs to have the strategic responsibility as well. So the chief of advocacy and communications that we're recruiting, and Julle is responsible for completing the change processes. We're talking about this kind of a process entities to see that our websites are completed. Now, for example, changes to our materials, our organization, we can use our communication visual parts correctly. And the management group will take care of the measurements. And this brand is also very much tied in with our other roles in the board. For example, the identity. We thought that being Aalto person is forever. Starting alumni activities and arts activities, which are also very important to consider our brand and community. Yes, this was the news in short. So please ask if you have any questions. No questions? So we can now watch our launch video, which we presented at the Independence Day celebration. Yes, long. Yes, the sneak peek of the long video. Yes, I simplify our communications. Oh, humiliated also in this meeting, but let's see what will happen next year at the Represent Council. Yes, I could tell a host, tell a joke, and let's resolve it with the host. Yes, thank you. The technique, yes.
So this is how we'll look next year. Can we have a short applause for the video? Now you can pause the video. So thank you to everyone for the year. It's been wonderful in undertaking this brand work project, and I think we did a pretty good job. I wish to also present the man behind the video. Applause to Joona. So larger thanks to Onni, Aalto, and Mia, who also helped in the project as well. So in this project, people from inside the house, this is what we've done. Let's continue with the same kind of drive to do things. Thank you for your help and support. If no other requests for the floor, moving to decide. As per the proposal, the representative council decided to place on record the news on the brand work project. Decided. Closing item 9, moving on to item 10. Latest news on the student center project. So I can just sit down. I can just say that we are having the preliminary discussion on the project plan on the student center will be undertaken later this meeting, and we'll continue back. So we'll have the student center news in more detail, along with the preliminary discussion. The proposal, or do you have any questions? No, you don't. So the proposal was that the representative council decided to place on record the news on the student center, decided as per the proposal. The news were that everything is going nicely, and you'll hear more very soon. Decided. Closing item 10, moving on to item 11. Reply to Sega Krantz and Gunnell's member motion regarding the rules of the use of the Teekari cap. And we have received a motion from members during the spring, and this issue has been discussed in meetings. For example, the meeting 7 out of 2017, and the board has taken this under advisement, and here we have the appendix as the appendix, the answer to the motion, and I think Orpana has promised to present this. But since this is a motion presented to the representative council, and this is something you will decide on the answer, and as always you can ask for proposals for change, and from inside you can hear the original proposal, see the original proposal and this motion. Opening discussions with Joona, starting on the presentation. Thank you. So, as much that we have this kind of preparation requirement, we'll undertake this as well. And during the fall, we've had these kinds of discussions regarding the Teekari situation. As you can see in the answer behind me on the board, the whiteboard, is that what you can propose if you wish. Regarding the motion, and we've raised points from our strategy, both from the direction of the student union and the brand strategy, which is that AYYE holds old student culture in high esteem and wishes that traditional student identities continue to flourish in the Aalto community. And part of these cultures are these symbols, as long as the student populace itself considers them valuable and worthy. We also raised points that we've, in addition to the action plan, we've had discussions that these Teekari activities and discussions on the Teekari activities, partly which comes from the student structural project, and through other means we should focus on that as a project. We used the term community structures, and in addition to the project demonstration, or how it should go, like we built this kind of work group that would aid the representative council and the Teekari community to undertake a broad discussion on the cap issue and other issues as well. So we should see that they should be undertaken as its own big package. And we've discussed on the Teekari cap as well that this work group should undertake the issue of the cap. So we are not proposing any straightforward measures as of yet towards the use of the cap. But we take enough comment that as since it's a national symbol, we should find out how the cap is being used in other cities and municipalities in Finland. We took a look at the regulations and rules. Now we've talked about a work group, but the regulation does not mention work groups, but rather committees. So that's why we wrote in this paper that the board has the mandate to set up a committee, but of course we've had work groups, so it depends on what we want to call them, but in these situations when we want to give a strong mandate to the work group in this preparation work and the task of maybe draft some proposals as well. So we decided that we are proposing, according to the regulation, that the board would form in January 2018 a work group. So that's the main points on the answer. And as you can see on the whiteboard, we have the answer there. We are not explicitly talking about representative council work group, but we are just talking about committees, and I think it's kind of a thin line, vague line between a work group or a committee. It can be made a year earlier either, but I understand the kind of practicality there, that we make a work group for the board, not the representative council. So opening general discussions, you may comment on the template and so forth. Nothing? So this is good? This is clear? Did we have anyone from Polytech? Yes, we have Ella. What do you think? As a TF member, you maybe could... You're in the knowledge, in the know of this proposal. Yes, I was there. But mainly we wanted that this work group would be set up and established, that we could start the conversation and the discussion. Okay, so, and according to this answer, that's what's going to happen. All right. It's a good response. So, if there is no additions or comments or questions, let's not waddle it around then. Well, that's closing discussions on the subject, and okay, I took a lot of time for this and all kinds of contingency plans, but it seems that we are ahead of schedule. Okay, moving to decide. The proposal was that the Representative Council decided to approve the reply to the member motion in accordance with Appendix 11.2. So yes, we decided to approve the reply to the motion, decided as per the proposal, decided. Closing item 11, and it's 10 to 6. Let's not... So yeah, we need to order the food. We need to have a break. So what do we do? Tapio knows. Okay. Can you ask for Presemo? Well, we decided that the order will take the rest of the meeting. Let's have a 15-minute break so that everybody who wants to attend at the central office for food will have kind of a sign-up queue. We'll queue from Voltti and Favas, which should accommodate all diets. So 15 minutes of break, go. stokkikuvat, mitkä mä muistan tuon piilin aina siellä. Ending the break and moving on. So moving on to item, hold on, where are we? Wrong papers. Item number 12, yes. So, moving on to item number 12, preliminary discussion on the project plan for the student center. Welcome Pyro and Onni will be doing, but both of us can answer. So you know, 45 minutes that we've spared for this, but we used an hour in the group chairperson's meeting, so we are ahead of schedule. So, hello everyone. So, once again, talking on the student center discussions, and we have the project plan that's been anticipated, and the first draft will have a preliminary discussion, the facilities plan being the most important part. The history is so that 10 years ago, TF and KY had changes in requirements, so facilities have been in the know, as it were, so we started to make these preliminary plans on what kind of facilities will we require if we'll build a building at some point. And AYYE joined this project in 2015, and during 2016 we did the facilities plan, which covers the current spaces, based on which we'll made a result where the student center was involved, and the project plan that we have here and the facilities plan is something, the first time where we can get some sort of vision on the program, not just pictures or stuff like that. But the facilities program has changed from the one we did for Mountain Man, is that we've taken communal spaces as its own entity, so that not just split it between all the three groups. It's based on usage, not governing. For example, we have the restaurant, which is TF's restaurant, and TF decides what happens, but of course can be assumed that everybody at Aalto will use the restaurant. And this current facilities plan is, well, the one that's been presented to you and sent via email, with 25 million per group, and that has been decreed as too expensive currently. So this kind of a project with that kind of a price tag will not be happening. But it's no reason to worry, because next we are moving on to, well, through discussions and negotiations and general workings, going into a situation where we combine our requirements, and we will try to bring down the price and also the amount of required space without having to cut down on the functions for either of the three parties. So that divergence convergence model, we're kind of in the divergence peak, and now we are kind of converging towards an actually sensibly priced project plan. Regarding the timetable, quite a small font, but you've been sent this as an appendix, so you can check it out from your own monitors. In January, we will host, at the start of January, an open workshop from which hopefully we'll get as much of the member base as possible to attend, to discuss and talk on what do we want from this student center if we decide to build one. And in February, March, we will be working on the project plan along with the financial committee. In February, in the new representative council through preliminary discussions, and in the financial committee and this work group for the student center formed out of all of these parties. The project plan aims to be ready in February and March, between those months, and so that in the March meeting we would be ready for the next hard decision point, which would be a kind of, we have these groups, the board, financial committee, and the representative council will approve of the ready-made program and to bind themselves to start on the construction planning process. And Keto went to renovations, and the renovations will be completed soon. If we need to approve of this plan on February, but how can we analyze and implement the changes made by the current renovations if the spaces have been in use for at most 4 weeks? We've renovated these spaces, created these new means and these new services, but we cannot analyze them or utilize the data in the student center project, so which is kind of wasted valuable information that could be efficiently used and attained to. So in that sense, I believe that this timetable is too strict. We have a lot of information that could be easily garnered by lengthening the timetable by 6 months, by extending it. It's a good point, but this project plan program is flexible enough in itself that we are making a building that needs to be 20-30 years. So one single renovation and changes caused by a single renovations are not big enough that we should extend by 6 months or delay the project plan. But if the representative council decrees to do so, you have the opportunity to do that and the power. In any case, as said, in this decision-making process, we may have halts, we may have continuances, outside influence, and discontinuations and extensions and delays. So what happens from here? That part is we're kind of making this if decisions, and it shouldn't be taken as facts, but as kind of an estimate based on current knowledge. And next, after the decision in February and March, we'll start the competitive tendering for the construction process. After when we've decided the contractor during the upcoming summer, and we will have the board and the financial committee and maybe the representative council could make the decision on who will make the construction planning, and in the late 2018 we'd make the planning work, and at the start of 2019 we would be ready to do a decision on initiating the construction of the designed, readied building plan. So that would be the last hard decision, after which we will place the hammer down, as it were, and see the building rise up. And here we have the timetable. Construction starts in 2019, and 2021 the building would be ready. So according to current information. So technical question, if we end up in the situation where if we have the planning architectural firm would be different from what we have currently discussed or decided on, will it change the timetable? Well, it will delay the timetable, but it won't change it to a degree, up to a degree that we shouldn't get hung over on the fact. Next. And here we would have our preliminary discussion topics. I'll be discussing on what kind of facilities does the representative council see that we should make into this building. The idea is to go through these one by one. What kind of facilities should AYY want to construct in the student center? And in the preliminary discussion we could get kind of a basic idea on, out of these facilities, what do you as the representative council see the most essential in terms of success of the building and utilization, so we can prioritize it at some point, because we don't have unlimited funds and we can't get everything. So in that sense we want that the representative council should have a view on what are the most important focus points. And at this stage I should have mentioned that this is, since it's your last meeting and for this representative council, so this is kind of your last chance to kind of a testament for the next representative council. So we can move your views forward to other parties. So this 2 years that has been undertaken, this representative council, this is kind of your legacy on what do you feel on this project that will be placed as a starting point for the next representative council, who will begin the actual year of operations at the start of the next year. So your opinions that you will voice in this discussion today will at least set the starting point for the new representative council. And we can do these kind of basic venues if we're making it for AYY, kind of a service point, staff offices, etc. And we don't need to discuss those because these are something that will be moved into the student center, which will be upcoming. And now talking about the bare minimum, or what on top of this bare minimum basic, what we are constructing. Will AYY build so that it sees that it's essential to itself and sees that it's something that looks like AYY? We have these 3 categories which we have recognized. Below AYY we had the volunteer spaces, ballroom spaces for events, and also association spaces that will be offered to associations within AYY sphere of influence, for example guilds and hobby groups and other stakeholders. So to start off we'll discuss from the point of view of the volunteer spaces. What kind of volunteer spaces would you like to see? The ballrooms and the association spaces. We'll discuss all these topics one by one and then vote on what is the most important things and what could we have or what should we have or what must we have, so we can get a kind of a picture or some sort of focus point is that the representative council can say what will the resources be weighed on. So starting from the volunteer spaces and facilities, a point which has been reiterated many times currently is that the volunteer spaces at the central office that has been voiced is that the current volunteer spaces and facilities are too small. We should extend those, and I would wish for an open conversation on, is it essential that we make dedicated section spaces? For example, we have an AVA room given to each year's AVA for their use, or would it be more important that we can get these kind of all kinds of work spaces where volunteers can work and spend time in, but nothing has been kind of earmarked to a certain section or certain group of volunteers? Or is it more important that for the volunteers we have this kind of communal world of volunteers where you divvy up the workspaces to all volunteers within AYY sphere of influence? instead of this that which have these AYY volunteers would be very specific to this building. So let's discuss this. I can gather up a list. Soivion Filman. So now we kind of got this concrete actual stuff. We are kind of gone with what ifs. So at this stage, when we are doing this work and discussing and looking at the facts and figures on what kinds of different facilities should we have, we need to keep in mind to keep it on the bigger axis on why is AYY attending this project and what we gain from this project. The biggest risk here is that if we spend a long time thinking of who will get what kind of a chunk of the cake will you get, it will delay the building, and it might end up so that we've spent a few years thinking of these facilities and venues and decided that, okay, this is not plausible to build this. So let's take the broad strokes, for example. We have the square meter prices, which are way too high currently. How can we cut them down and start moving from that route? So what Soivia said, that it's true that there are lots of aspects that we've discussed, and we want input also of these singular venue facility choices because it's a part of the plan. We need to be able to form a comment on the spaces and facilities at this stage as well, even though if we feel that we want to talk about the bigger picture. But this stage is also important. I'll ask to start with this kind of workspace that can be allocated to a volunteer group is a lot better in my opinion than this hard-coded facility that this belongs to X, etc. Seppälä. It's a good discussion, but we have not asked the volunteers and the people who will be using these facilities, who know how volunteers work, what's the feeling, what kind of volunteer facilities do they require. So currently we only have a few people who've been volunteering, don't know how this whole thing operates, and we are discussing this. But we currently require the facts from the volunteers. This is important, this is very important for their activities, and their activities need to be safeguarded. And I think we have at most 5 sections there. We have 3 people on top of each other, 3 sections on top of each other with Vappu, the May Day celebrations. It has to do with the fact that we need to diversify enough that, for example, we need parts where we need lots of spaces. For example, we need lots of space during May Day celebrations and the Vappu week. But the fact that we need to keep them also separate, and there's a large risk that we will mix up things with other things and can't find them. So it's kind of lots of practical issues. In addition, the fact that we have this own image, that if you know this kind of own facility space, that you can create their own culture and root themselves in. So it's kind of quirky to discuss this here first without any facts. I have to discuss that. What I understood from here, the question was that if we have a kind of a scale on, at the other end we focus on AYY stakeholder associations and give these hard-coded groups, and then we have the other end where AYY volunteers have no space of their own, but they share all the spaces with all parties. And the work group wants to know on what does the representative council. Should we focus on favoring AYY's volunteers, something in between, or focus on everyone without any specific favors? I think that this is something that, in my opinion, should have been asked from the volunteers first. So I think this is very quirky for the representative councils that we lack the kind of view. I really can't say, in my opinion, which of these ends would be better. I kind of have my personal opinion on the issue, but I can't say if it's 90-10 or 10-90 or what the percentages be. So I think that I don't want to give my own opinion to this question yet, because it gives too much credence, because I'm one of the only people in this room with lots of volunteer experience. So in that sense, you shouldn't be too worried over issue. We're not making kind of a vote that could create kind of a setting where the volunteers on the other side and the representative council are on the other. We are of course going to ask the volunteers. We just want the representative council's opinion on, because we have only limited resources, how much are we placing on volunteers as opposed to other parts. So I can see this. Yes, we need to ask the volunteers, but we need to ask the volunteers at the stage where we can say how much space we have, because if we go and ask the volunteers, and well, what do you want? And they won't be like, if we offer like, you can get as much space as we need. It's like, okay, we don't want this or that, or we want this or that. The volunteers will take all the space they're given, but then it's the job of the representative council to decide how much space they will be given. And as a question, I'd say that AYYE works largely on volunteer activities. So in that stage, it is very important to enable a situation where the facilities are not a stopgap for the activities of the volunteer associations and volunteers in general. So if the sections feel that they need their own warehouses, they will get them. But maybe a general workspace that can be modular and modifiable. So let's say that we have, for example, the associations that have their own warehouses and a communal workspace. I'd like to take this back to the meta level, and let what we've discussed in several meetings. And there was a good motion on made on Facebook. I think it's really absurd to talk about these warehouses or rooms when we, as a student union, don't have a vision or an opinion on what are we doing regarding this building, and as a student union, what do we want to do. I wish that we would be doing that discussion first, after which we can start to divvy up the cake as per facilities. We can't do X if we need to decide on the big pictures first. So let's try and centralize the discussion in that. Let's take it at a very general level on the commentary of the place of volunteers, but let's not discuss dividing warehouses or rooms. Let's focus on the fact that we can get from this preliminary discussion the stance of the current representative council on what is important and what is the next and most important on a second level, or etc. etc. if we have to place these on certain pedestals or on numerical order. I would like to discuss what Korpelainen mentioned, but let's not discuss this issue, but since you asked. But I think some sort of metaphor. Maybe the fact of having separate spaces is good or not, but like these facilities could ease that if we have these separate spaces, making them into sort of war rooms when you have these events that are upcoming and you need the space to plan and discuss. I'll pass my chance.
Just to aside myself is that yes, we can ask the volunteers, but of course we can't promise anything to them yet. Just need to take grounds for their needs. That are some dedicated spaces for, then they have to give grounds to why they need them. So if they get this scale, I'll probably be in the middle myself, because it's meant to be as a communal space. I see that it's less communal if we have more of this kind of dedicated spaces. So we should make that kind of a obligatory sharing of spaces would be good. Yes, what Pep meant, I think, and what I agree also, is that what we're hearing from the volunteers is that, and no one has asked us that what do the volunteers need, or we don't have any documents to base our decision on. So it's really difficult, or it's really stupid to make decisions if we haven't listened to the people who the matter pertains to and hear them out that what kind of spaces they need. If we don't have information and we decide on something, I think that's wrong. Yes, I'll remind you that we are not deciding anything yet. Yes, but we haven't received any information about this, so it's really hard to give a appropriate stand on the issue. Yes, do the volunteers want to be there together, or do they want their own spaces, for example on AYY's own block? With personal experiences, of course, people think that nice if you have this kind of shared spaces, but it's hard to make, for example, the central office is a very easily approachable place, and for some of the volunteers are afraid of using the central office, so have this huge space. Then there are just a couple of active people, and other volunteers, it's difficult for them to come there. And it's a fact, I know that it's difficult to come there because they're afraid of the people who are very active. Of course, everyone is welcome, but this is how people see it. So if it's kind of a shared space for everyone, some people can start dominating the space. Thus, there needs to be kind of a clear functions for associations that they feel that they're welcome. For example, KY would have their own space and TF would have their own, and AYYE would have their own. So not just like a big shared space for everyone. Some shared spaces is it enough that it's the kitchen, and all the other spaces are dedicated, or do we need some other shared spaces besides the kitchen? But I don't really know, because we have to ask the volunteers. I don't think this is such a big issue regarding expenses that we should make a really stand at this point. Let's keep our speeches short, please. Yes, I'm going to say about these volunteers that volunteers change every year. There are new people, they have new opinions, new views on things, what kind of facilities they need, events change, their time scale. So what we want from the European Council is a kind of framework for what kind of volunteer work should AYYE facilitate. So that's the purpose of the Representing Council. So of course it's good to ask the volunteers, but I think it's the Representing Council's obligation to decide what kind of activities we want to facilitate and allow before the next speech. Okay? Oh yes, then Palmo. First I have to ask that. Did you want to comment on everything or just about volunteer spaces? Yes, first we're just not talking about volunteer spaces, then we move on to the other ones. Yes, I agree with Mikko, very good speech. Yes, I think the student center's core would be that would have shared spaces. And the way I see it is that we should find this kind of a minimum amount of own space for AYYE sections, for example, and the rest of the spaces would be shared. That would be the ideal situation, I think. And for this entire project, of course, we need to talk about the general vision of AYYE, but previously the problem with this project has been that people, we have received feedback from people that people really can't grasp anything from it. There's not enough concrete things, and now we're trying to decide these concrete things. So this kind of envisioning work could also be part of the answer that we can use to achieve our vision. That's good. Yes, so Yes, a lot of people have talked about that we need to ask of the volunteers, but I disagree. I think at some point we need to have a start discussion. We just can't have a waterfall approach to the project, that we always put everything in order, and before any of the items we always ask someone about the item. But as Nico said, in 5 years we'll have the completely new volunteers as we have now. We also here. Probably all of us have volunteered at some task at some point, so you have some kind of a notion that what would volunteers need from spaces. And so it's problematic that if we ask the volunteers now, it's hard for them to describe, because they don't know yet. They haven't had their own spaces yet, so it's really hard for them to say what kind of spaces they need more. And the more there are own spaces, allocated spaces, the less we have these common spaces where everyone can feel welcome. And as Peppi said, that we need to have enough shared spaces so that everyone has the courage to come there. But the bigger problem is that if everyone has his own spaces, really small shared spaces, then especially the shyer people are afraid to come there. And I think now we should decide on about that, the size, the scale of how many facilities we want to give to the volunteers, because we know that how much space one person needs for work, and we have to discuss that, for example, how many persons will be working there simultaneously. And after we've defined that, then we have to think that which group we have to invest in to give us the most benefit. For example, on Vappu, there are some sections that need their own spaces, so they can generate a benefit for the AYYE. Yes, if it's okay, we will now limit the speeches to 1 minute, because there are a lot of requests for floor here. Yes, as from the chairperson meeting, we are not making the facilities program that how many storage rooms we have and how many conference rooms. It's just do we want to give them 10 or 100 square meters. It's more about that. And how to divide them, we can do that later. And ask the volunteers about that. And not now when the council is deciding on how much money to use for the volunteer facilities. Yes, I kind of connect these two things, this kind of meta discussion and these things here on the board. So for now we have this project planner who defines the size, the scale, the expenses based on where on this scale we want the volunteers to put. Because if we have kind of a section spaces for everyone, then it'd be more expenses and more square meters. But if we have this kind of a shared spaces with all the parties, and it's what about us all, it's volunteers and festive spaces. We have festive spaces, no festive spaces, or shared festive spaces. And the other party should also ask AYYYE that what do you want this communality to be? And it could be that this X is shared. Yes, your minute is up. Yes, we've got dedicated spaces for a long period of time. They would not be used as efficiently as the shared spaces, because the one party cannot use it all the time. So you should have these flexible kind of a project rooms that we can give to certain groups for a certain amount of time. Yes, many approved of this proposal. As Topi said, that we shouldn't ask anyone, because I think this is a community project. I didn't mean that. What I meant is that we can now discuss, even though we would ask them in January. I think at all stages, the more data we receive, well, there are different volunteers next year, they change all the time, but it doesn't mean that we shouldn't ask them. We have to adhere to their opinions. But I really can't say that if people want to have a more closer cooperation with KY and TF, or do they want to feel that they're AYY's volunteers and form the AYY volunteer team and a collective. So they have different mentalities with people. Because I myself identify myself as AYY volunteer, so if there are very strong shared spaces, then I would identify more strongly with my section, and then it would lead to the compartmentalization of sections and decrease the communality. It's very peculiar that at this time of the project we're now talking about that. Oh, what do these people want? Because I think AYY should now bring forth that we've examined the issue and this is what we find out. And if you haven't done that, then what haven't we? Because we have the documentation, we've looked into the issue, we have asked about it. The results, I want to see the results of this. We're planning a building that hopefully would be there for many decades. So I think that kind of shared spaces, flexible spaces, have more kind of a long-term use than, for example, having 28 little rooms. Because it might be that in 20 years we have a totally different situation in our community. So I think that flexibility and shared spaces would be really good. Yes, thank you. I think now with the project planning. When I was selected, I didn't know what we were talking about, but I yet don't know about. We came late, so those will change the plan, and it isn't a problem. But if you have kind of about this kind of building, is this okay with us? We have to think about that, and the next year we have to think about where to put which room or how many rooms to have. It doesn't really matter, that's not that important, but if you read the project plan and if that's not okay, then what needs to be done in order to be okay? And for the questions, for this dedicated spaces temporarily, not permanently. And we also build that somewhere if we can. We're not there yet, so yeah. Can't go much in detail, but I think it's good. It would be good to discuss that. What is missing from this plan? That what do we need for it to make it better? So if we ask the volunteers, bring it here, then talk about it. That do we want to go with it or not? And the current project plan says that it has all of these bullets there, and then it would be too expensive, the project. So that's our problem. Yes. So the data, then the reasoning that why we need it. But I think that the starting point should be the shared spaces, because we can put walls up there if we need to in the future. But shared spaces would be a good starting point. So be cautious that we don't start going around in circles in the discussion. Yes, I was going to say the same thing, that I think we have enough data now. So during these speeches, please tell us requests for floor. The next two speeches than this. The planning process doesn't go that way that you ask people's opinions that what do they need, but you have to understand that how does the users use the building and what kind of activities there are there. Then when you have the understanding, the knowledge, then you have the plan what kind of spaces you would have. So the point is that we're not asking their opinion, because the planners will plan. Yes, 2 more requests for floor. Sagrit Mikko. Is that we're at this kind of a surveying, but we haven't done this surveying at all. So, trying to wrap this conversation up. So no one disagrees that we should have shared spaces, and everyone also thinks that we should have some kind of dedicated spaces. So the big question is that, do you have our own kind of a cabinet for all sections or what? Or a swimming pool or what? So this will be a conversation that we don't really progress with. So by shared spaces and dedicated spaces, I think we have kind of a consensus. But the fact that the sections want to control saunas, well, of course they want it. But we should have a chart their operations to see after that do they need the sauna or not. Between what do we need between a sauna and just a small cupboard for the sections. I think no, we shouldn't go that much into details, and I think it would be good if we ask about this kind of a general opinion that how do we value these things. Well, we're still here in the volunteer spaces and not in the 2 other ones. But the volunteer spaces, I think it's extremely good to have everyone together, not necessarily own spaces for sections, because sections can be created and destroyed in the coming decades, but it would be important that AYYE sections would have kind of small spaces where they can focus on their own activities. Thank you very much, very good discussion, especially a good summarization from Peppi. And I hope that Onni has managed to write down the things that we wanted to ask, the answers to those things. And I just want to say, as Joona said, that in the current project plan, all of these would be implemented, or even if not. But if we imagine that we have a facility program where we have all of these facilities here, and everything is implemented, and it would be much too expensive. So what would be the one we should scale down? What is the most important of these? That's the discussion that we need to have now. And with that, let's move on to the next thing about the festive spaces. Well, first, I'll hear a discussion, short comments on what did you see are the important factors for festive spaces in this building for AYYE. Starting with that, do we need to have this kind of dedicated festive space? Very much that the mökki, for example, that's going to be used for something else during the day, if it's appropriate for that. But that are primarily festive spaces. And secondly, if we want festive spaces, if we want to also use it for something else, for example a lobby, that can also be turned into a festive space, or is it important for us to try to find with KRTF or with everyone to have this kind of shared festive space that we can hand out the shifts on who will use it? Or do we just want to remove all festive spaces, not have them at all? Opening discussion.
Thank you. A comment here that in festive spaces it would be important to know that what will happen to our other ballrooms, because I'm not personally an architectural student, but I feel that the student center is expensive as ballrooms go, and if we can build it cheaper in another place, it would be a better place. AYYE will need more festive space, so we need it somewhere. An excellent comment. If we need kind of a starting point, we should think that the current spaces will stay as they are, will not be changed, maybe renovated, but what we are searching for is that we have facilities all around Otaniemi and Helsinki, whereas KY and TF are focusing all their ballrooms in this space. Do we see it as important that instead of building the festive spaces elsewhere, we should rather build them here. It's not in sight that we could receive a ballroom that where we could stay late. They'll be in like kind of sauna spaces in buildings with apartments where we can't stay until 5 a.m. But that kind of regular spaces can be gained. But isn't OK20, which is going into renovations, which I think that OK20 is going to plumbing renovations, and we can renovate a new ballroom space. So should we find out what is the future for the topmost floor of OK20? Of course, we have not decided and what it will be. We can decide it, but thing to be considered regarding OK20 is that we've gotten a few reclamations that this night use isn't very efficient. The tenants are being affected by it, by the noise, even though we've tried to design it so. I kind of had this problem discerning between dedicated ballroom space and modular space, which can be used for festive occasions. There won't be balls there every day or parties, but if and when we are having these, it would be best that we'd have a lot of space that would be communal space. So I count these modular spaces would be the key. I think on KY's side is that we are having a quite high usage on our festive spaces. Like it wouldn't create, would or not create cost-effective savings, and we have this difficulty that maybe if we have a joint custody, nobody's really in charge of things in practical terms. And when we discuss the other facilities, noise is a large risk in building all other festive facilities, and this should be a building which would not cause noise discrepancies towards any party, because there's no apartments nearby. But we should think of a facility that can be used for ballrooms, like for example meeting spaces that can be used as party spaces in the evening. So we have three options. Let's build modular spaces, build our own collective, or not do anything at all. The most sensible would be that, because we have these different governing bodies, let's make that the lobby, so that that the lobby would be available for seats parties of under 100 people. So this could be the most easy and efficient way. Get like dedicated ballroom space, but for example, if we are ending these night use spaces, maybe a sauna, and we cut back on OK20's user times, it will affect actually the fact that we have only 2 spaces where we can stay until later than 11 p.m., which is not enough. So depending on what's upcoming on the new buildings with apartments, that way we can stay longer than 11. So that's why we need the sauna department. And so we need to map on what's the current situation regarding facilities. So used per capacity, space used per capacity and communal ballroom spaces. It enables that if we have the ballroom there for the festive events, if it's dedicated, it's kind of a risk that it might stay empty, but it's there and can be used for parties. Usually there's something there always. And we have this ideological things that as we move and shake it, we want to enable hosting activities. What's being taken now is that what is the demand, and we see that the demand in the future after we've centralized all of our activities. If it's not enough, then we will build more spaces and facilities. And if it can't be built in OK20 or other facilities, we'll build here. And if we can get modular spaces with joint governance with KY and TF, then we should do them with them. If not, we should do it alone. But if we still have enough demand, that it's enough for a dedicated ballroom space. Or if not, we should build another. So it's kind of a tree for decisions, kind of a flow chart. So first Sade Palmo and then Matilda Sade. I think that kind of a dedicated ballroom space should be avoided because it's expensive. Ballroom spaces are big. But regardless, in the student center we will house some sort of parties, like from AYY's point, so it should be taken into account. Like, kind of agree with Peppi that if we are making for AYY kind of a big space or facility that could be used for parties, let's if it could be enabled by making a few extra square meters. And Matilda Sade. I'd like to ask on what kind of a ballroom spaces are we discussing? Are we talking about a sauna or a smökki-sized thing placed, which are two different things? We shouldn't have 3 smökkis side by side for each of the 3 parties. If there's a lot of use, then maybe. The short answer is that, of course, we will look at based on usage. And we have the data. We've been asked in the group chairperson meeting, and we didn't have the time to present it, but based on requirements and demands, of course. So in this sense, a kind of a bad answer that I don't have a straight answer, but I'd say a kind of like a focal point. We can use a space where 100 people can sit down for a table party and sing. But this is another ideological question, is that do we want that any Aalto people or AYY Movers and Shakers activities or actives, people in the services, associations can use the student center to organize parties? If yes, and the next question is like, what is our entire capacity? If we don't want to, if we don't have these, that we will only have KF and KY and TF parties, then we don't need to discuss this. So, what discussed on, will there be saunas or what kind of facilities, especially if OK usage will be shortened in terms of time, we need more facilities for evening use. But what I've said before is that we need some sort of space for the current central office. When we are thinking of the ballroom spaces, we should find out on what kind of facilities can be built, and would it be functionable to have some sort of ballroom there, or ballrooms? Would it be cheaper to do it there at the new central office than the student center? There is no advisement on cutting back on the usage of OK20. I want to clarify, we are not doing that. It's not optimal for our use currently, but we are not cutting back on it. We have options for the usage of the building that's currently the central office, and if the representative council so wishes to do so, we may find out on what it would cost and to change this. But I think that what Joona said, that it would be important that we'd have these venues and facilities that each and every party could feel like their own. So this project is a failure if we have a kind of a KYTF playing field with offices for AYY. So spaces need to be equally used. So currently we have the central office when we have the big meeting room. So it could basically, it's kind of sitting empty there. and I don't know how much evening use do we have for it. But if we have kind of a space like this at the student center that could be used for ballroom space, let's go. Discussing saunas, so there will be student housing next to it, so maybe we could build saunas there. All right, I think we have some sort of summary, and then Peppi, and then followed by last request for the floor. So what Topi said, that is, if it won't be services facilities for AYY members, at this stage we could just stop discussing this whole building. We need spaces and facilities which will be beneficial for AYY's associations and members. Otherwise we don't want to be part of this project. And ballroom meeting spaces, can they work? Because I can't see how this works, because meetings might last until 6 and CT preparations might start at 4, so I can't see this. So it sounds really nice, but it's not really plausible. If we can actually have sauna facilities in apartment spaces, so we can't host after parties until 2 a.m. because we must be out of the building by 11 p.m. So we really need dedicated sauna spaces. We have 3 facilities which can be used after 11 p.m. which are Rantsusmökki and OK20, and OK20 also we know that it's not optimal. We've discussed long that it looks like we should build AYY sauna facilities as well in the student center. Then last request from Juho. But I would kind of hold to my own flowchart. So since I think that was an excellent flowchart. So should we have facilities for parties where associations and volunteers can host parties? I'd say if you think of it this way, we will come to the kind of answer that yes, we will have those kind of spaces because we are lacking those kind of spaces currently. But if you see it as not smart, well then I would say that let's not build stuff just for ideological purposes, build them for practical ones. So I wish to remind people that if we are building only new office spaces, it's kind of hard to give grounds to this financially. At this stage, if it's so, let's not build anything. Then it's not plausible to design or build anything stupid. So then, I'm commenting my own question in concrete measures, that I think that if we are answering the question yes, we need AYY and AYY stakeholder groups should be able to organize events, then we will start to break it down, be it in the lobby, festive space, communal space, modular space, whatever it may be. We can bring these variations. One of these variations can be, for example, I can get this, let's build a smökki-sized facility for parties and give up smökki. This might not be possible, but it's a concrete suggestion. All right, really good conversation. Lots of good points. Moving on to the third iteration, the association spaces, which I mean that, for example, KY will offer in the student center, will offer to its subgroups and associations, they will offer association spaces, whereas in AYY the other groups are very, very smattered around Otaniemi and guild rooms and facilities like that. In addition to that, we also have many, many club rooms around the village, the Aalto village. So discuss on the fact that is it purposeful, in the representative council's opinion, that associations, special status associations, hobby groups would be brought to the student center and use resources to create to certain associations, create facilities for them, or communal spaces for several associations, or just one-time rental spaces for different associations, or bookable venues, or warehouse space for different projects, or whatever the rest of it may be, miscellaneous spaces or facilities. So starting to discuss this, and after we've decided to end the discussions, and then we'll start to vote on the priorities. So here, the associations and club rooms, I think we discussed on the starting point. We discussed it last year in the Tampere model to combine, where they're combining everything, and that the current representative council didn't support it thus, so I think it's pretty weird to bring it up again. We shouldn't offer guild spaces, that's the job of the university, it works good for so far. So on club spaces, of course, yes, it would be nice to organize club and association spaces. That we had these for whatever happened with Dipoli. That was a kind of a mismatch. So kind of drawing the lines for dedicated club rooms is very hard. Or then we can discuss kind of permanent club rooms offered by AYYE is kind of a big question and kind of a bit of an iffy one. But warehouse spaces, project spaces, communal spaces, this is something that I think we should discuss. This is kind of a service that we could have offered our members that we couldn't offer otherwise. I think that guilds, etc., the groups with facilities, I don't see why they should move to the student center. But thinking of why the student center is valuable for the community and what we should use it for would be that we have this kind of one-time rental space style facilities where you can have these hobby rooms or craft rooms, meeting rooms that can be booked by the hour or by the week for your own use. So from the point of view of AYY's associations or clubs or singular students, that if they have kind of a project course and they can book this venue for a week to do it. I think that in this project is like when we are inventing the cell phone, it's the more people have cell phones, the more beneficial they are for everyone. So the more these certain association stakeholder groups benefit from these, the more will the community as a whole. A big question is that, for example, how much will the extra square meters cost? I think the plan's cost was 4,300, and we have, for example, Vare, which is not a Kouvola-style square building. It was very expensive as well. So if we are with €1,000, we can make a new square meter. It's really a lot easier to give grounds to the fact of building new things. From the association spaces, I focus that we should offer space to guilds, but I don't think that we should offer facilities to associations either. What we have at Keto could be booked. We maybe get like some warehouse spaces, but warehouse spaces are expensive, and so workspaces, communal use spaces, bookable spaces, for example, theatre, orchestra. These are the issues which this is a nice project that we should undertake. These are good. Kind of echoing the thoughts here, that the problem with dedicated spaces, that if we see that we are generally creating value, that we have these specific associations there, it should be checked. Talking about per square meter price, like we have buildings here in Otaniemi that we could think on how much warehouse space do we actually need. Should we have it at the student center, the warehouse, or should we have it somewhere in Otaniemi? Or Or what? I think that the dedicated spaces for associations do not sound sensible. Kind of adding my voice to that. And my idea would be that associations could somehow come and host events to the student center. And for example, utilize the fact that we have a TF restaurant, etc. So it would be possible to organize events where that could be seen to the community, that could be open. So that's a good point of utilization. And I think that maybe some associations could rent or book or host events for a week or stuff like this at the student center. Or why not longer, for a week if it's a good idea and everybody benefits. So communal events got lots of bonuses. What I've thought is that we have a lack of warehouse spaces, and arts associations are moving into Otaniemi, and they will need warehouse spaces. So it sounds expensive, but we need to find a solution that I think we should build some warehouse spaces for the student center. I think that in this current situation, the biggest problem is that Keto is only being used by the core team of AYYE, meaning the sections, and it looks like they are pretty far from the everyday member. So the regular member doesn't really understand what AYYE is and why should I be a member of AYYE and what does it do. So in that sense, they rose the possibility of communal spaces and joint spaces. So that should be something that for the associations should be encouraged to use these spaces to bring the student union closer to the member. We don't need warehouse spaces there if it's not sensible to build there. It can be built in other places. I was thinking this kind of student club activities. Currently we are doing it in the evenings, and in the evenings currently they move around where they live, which would be the Aalto village. So kind of facilities and activities that center around the place where people tend to congregate during evenings are sensible. As we said, that looks very good. That we have most of the stuff from the conversation. We have silent copy, and then the last requests for the floor. There's maybe been a point that has been taken saying about warehouses, is that in chairperson meeting I think we said that warehouse spaces are needed somewhat for event managing, but in addition to that we should keep it at a minimum. Like we need kind of during the work that you can move them out of the way. I think somebody mentioned that activists would very likely do volunteer activities where they live, but I could also say that we have 12,000 other members of the student union. That I think when the art is moving here, if we want to actually get them excited in activities, it's very important that which kind of transport is used to reach these spaces. So last request for floor, then we will move on to summarize. Nothing. So I want to tell my vision through 3 points. My vision is that we can build a center where any association, especially special status associations or stakeholders tie-ins, could host meetings and some sort of activities, host projects. Then again, we could make project groups, like Tempaus-style events that would have the required facilities that could work at the student center. Currently it's pretty challenging. Kind of make it this kind of state-of-the-art volunteer space. Like less space, more space, they can be the same space as well. So it would be, it's nice that we could also host these parties by other parties than TF.
So a short comment. As an analogy about this dough, which is always shapes itself according to the space it is given. But of course it's good to also have to analyze based on actual needs. Yes, excellent points. The qualitative part of this slide has ended. We've written down all the points. Now we'll have the preliminary vote on that you know how to decide one, which is the most important of these three, or you can also vote empty. So everyone has one vote. After that we'll have the vote. We will count them. I think we have 3 good points, but one important is missing. What will be the function for the regular member to come to this space? So I think we should have priority, that we would find a function for these regular members to come here. Do you want to comment on this? Yes. Yes, we could have 4 here, and voting empty. So volunteer spaces, festive spaces, organization or association spaces that work within AYYE, and the spaces for this kind of random users, and empty. Try to pick one which you think is the most important. Yeah, I think it's hard to vote from these. It's hard to pick the most important one, but yeah. So please have faith that we have written down all your votes, and we'll hear them out. So it's just that we force you to do this. You have 7 pages of notes here, so you probably understand, then that everyone can participate in the actual discussion, so it's good to have the entire room's opinion, but we won't look it like very rigidly at these votes. So please imagine that there's also a 4th option here for the regular members, who is not covered by these 3 options. So is the voting procedure clear to everyone? We will go through the 4 options. So raise the blue slips for the option that you want to pick. You can only raise the blue slip once, and then we'll also see the empty votes then, so we can see that we have the right number of votes. The first, volunteer spaces. Thank you. Second, festive spaces. Third, association spaces. And then the 4th, for the regular members, spaces. Yes, 8. Yes, please raise them properly. Sara? Job. Yes or no? 8. And empty votes. 2. Okay, moving on to the next slide. How many minutes have we used now? Yes, 75 minutes. So please have faith that because we have a lot of discussion. So now we'll move on to kind of a more of voting-based sections. We also want to have this kind of simple votes. You know, if someone really wants to comment on something, please keep it short, but not this kind of a in-depth discussion as previously. So the first question is about these shared spaces, communal spaces. Do we want to have the starting point to be that the spaces are completely under AYYYE's control, and that's what we will do there? Or do we want to implement them with other parties to the agreement? For example, if we build a festive space, do we want it to be it to be owned by AYYE 100%, which costs more, or do we want to build with KY, for example, a festive space if they want one, where we don't have total ownership of it, but will save in expenses. So, preferably very short comments and then to the vote. No meta discussion. If you have any proposals regarding that, send them after this discussion. Now only just solutions that you want to convince your fellow representatives. Does communality mean that it's community at all aspects? Yes. If a member wants to use a certain facility and will rent to their rent the space, KY space through AYYE or what? So as a concrete example, if we have festive space, which is 50-50 from the years of the day, the AYYE can use it and 50-50 for KY to use. Any other requests for floor? Yes, moving on the vote. So blue means the AI has total ownership, and red means that we try to do together with others, and white is empty. So there's financially rational solutions. So of course, if we do it together, we'll do that if that's financially smarter, but I think we're missing the financial aspect that's important. Yes, we'll now have the value discussion, and after that, based on those, we will see the financial reality of the matter, and then we can be flexible according to our finances. So I think our financial framework is so that we will not get anything extra there. That's clear. It's either like this or like this, but it can't be like nothing else. So I'm ready to vote. So blue slips, total ownership by AYYE. 2. Is that the blue or white one? The empty votes come third, not now. Red slopes. Try to do these together. Yes, thank you. And empty votes. Thank you. Good, move on to the next slide. Discussion on how to go forward with the process. In this project plan phase, if the project plan is approved, then in the design phase, we will face a lot of operative decisions. One example would be that we will choose that which architect's office would design the building based on the plan, or we have to decide that what is the color of the external walls of the building. So these kind of decisions, does the current representative council, this is a valid question, do you want to emphasize more that we'll give kind of this mandate of trust to the working group and the board to make operative decisions, or do you want that as many decisions are possible in each meeting we will have votes on these issues at the meetings? Kind of a third alternative, giving a strong mandate, but it also includes that the representative council is communicated constantly on what is going on. I think that belongs to the first option. The communication, that's kind of an inherent part of it. Yeah, but I thought if you use kind of light channels and not, for example, not in every meeting, we could have kind of Facebook polls. Yes, I think that's the mandate option. Just for example, we could ask about these colored walls from the members. So the more we have this kind of a shared discussion, the more it feels like a shared project. And the more we do this in the working group without concrete discussion, the less it feels for the community that they can influence the project. And then they will oppose it. And if it's just giving them kind of a big package of information, they don't feel that they've been involved. So I think everything that is possible should be brought to the Representation Council for discussion. I think we could discuss. Or we can do it in some other way than that, just with voting by slips. But I think it would be good if we bring it to the whole Representation Council, not to the committees. This is one of our biggest projects, and everyone should feel that they're really involved in it. And it's good to involve other parties too. But also the members should, for example, we got a Facebook poll to them that what color wall they want. Everything that can improve the communal spirit is good, and the more it will receive support. So it would be smart also for you to ask others than just you. I think even though we represent the community, we're not the community, so at the operative level, that's the operative level. Ask the volunteers and inform people, for example, in different channels. I think that creates the community. So I think this is a very communal group. So I haven't asked any of my friends' opinions on anything when I came here. We should also keep in mind that I agree with Pepe, but we should bring here in time beforehand, not the way that we have this operative things, make decision and then delay the process with that. That's not smart. So let's talk about these things beforehand. So if I perceive it correctly, the discussion, the minimum option for participation and involvement is that decisions are made on the operative level, but by using light channels, we will communicate in the working group, and then the other extremity would be that the Representation Council would every month make decisions on every issue as the highest decision-making body. So are these the options, or does someone want the more operative option? Okay, Korpelainen. Yes, if on the meta level, it would be easier to get a mandate if we would have the strategic vision. Then we could do that to make these operative decisions. There are operative decisions on two levels. Then I got color of the walls and then other operative decisions. This project plan is this kind of a hard decision that we can use to reach the level of discussion of is this a wise project? Is the vision good? I'd like to have this kind of preliminary surveys to Representation Council. I'd also like to comment on the method. Can I? Yes. So I didn't realize first that what Antti meant. It's kind of hard to understand what strategic level means. You're not the only one. So for example, more concretely about these spaces, then we should do more think about our goal is that, for example, AYYE is visible for the ordinary members in this building, or that our goal is that our volunteers cooperate more with KY and TF's volunteers, and that's reflected in the facilities. that kind of strategic level was missing from the previous discussion. I think that now we really have gotten our hands dirty and getting more concrete things. We are ready to do this. But you're not suggesting any other proposal, any other alternative? Yes, no, I just stole the request for floor. We're 2 minutes late from our original 2 minutes. So we have spent 35 extra minutes already on this issue. So I'd like to clarify. So I could propose this kind of a last point. That decide as representative council that what is our strategic objective. Is it to build the Aalto community, to bring services to members? What is it? Whatever it is. But we're just talking about these closets, and we don't really know about this objective. So it's really absurd to talk about these closets here. We have a clear vision, for example, of the support organizations, or clubs, or build Aalto community. And based on that, the working group can bring proposals to represent the council. Can I comment? Want is the objective that was in our precondition discussion last year, which has also been written down there, recorded. Because there's a lot of criticism with the precondition process. That's hard to make the vision if we don't have anything concrete. And now when we do concrete things, people say it's difficult to do the vision thing, so... Yes, it is in the preconditions that it's a builder of a community, the student center, and the multi-purpose use is at the center of everything. And that's why we have these concrete things here now. So we have started with building a community and then thinking about this. That doesn't make any sense. Here's our brand officer or something, and there's another request for floor. So anything about next year? Kind of this analogy, that do you wish the student center to be kind of a similar strategic, to have kind of a strategic document as we had with the brand strategy, for example? Do we want this kind of preparatory work that we can use to make the operative decisions? I have an answer. This had as proposal on our chairperson meeting. That no strategy because it will take so long. But at least what comes up, and there's different values. Also concrete spaces, but there are values. And then we can prioritize them. And a chance to give our vision on it. Now, so let's try to get this discussion over with quickly. There's one speech, and Otto will not speak anymore. Very short speech, and then we will vote. This is our last meeting. So we'll sit here just for a couple of hours. We'll decide this policy. We'll have this document for the new representative council next year. And they will just screw up when we have this good preliminary discussion for the January's similar discussion for the representative council, which has a 2-year term, because their opinions matter more. This is a good basis for it, but we have to do this again in January. And then we have to discuss that, what does the representative council want. I think our group could come up with a way that if we want to crystallize this more, in a different form, because we will not have a meeting anymore with this group of people. This preliminary discussion will work as a basis, and with the new Representative Council in February we'll have a similar discussion with the information we have then based on the project plan. And of course the comments and proposals will be taken into notice. Yeah, there's 2 words. A good discussion. Excellent. That our financial manager was also here to listen. Because we hoped that all of many questions that we raised that they could have answered us. We have different alternatives, but we didn't get them, the answers yet. So maybe next time. Thought that after the item, if you had something to say from the financial committee, but whatever you feel like. Chairperson representatives, 2 things to say. The first is that in the financial committee really want to support this process. So if you feel that we want to slow this down, we don't. Now in spring, whenever we hear the discussions about this, we need to have this kind of policy that, and we need a vision that we need to know what we want to do. But what's more important is that our will is that we can support it so that the financial framework is on track, and my personal opinion or statement is that we can implement this project much more cost efficiently than when we have this kind of a document that we have now. So don't get caught up in that. The financial committee is promoting this with their own actions. That's good. So do you want to have kind of vote on this? Yes, let's have a vote. I think we have been kind of sidetracked for the last 15 minutes, so let's vote. The first option is that operative demanded, the board has demanded, and we will inform that through constant communications and light communications channels. And that's blue, and red is that the Representative Council wants to use the highest decision-making power that it has in our student union and make the decisions every month in the Representative Council meetings. So let's move on to the vote. Could we have the third option? What? Did I say it before? Of course the first, but modified. That are in the dark. But you have this kind of direction given by the Representative Council. Alternative is 1. Let's continue as we have done now. So that the working group's board has a stronger mandate. Or 2 is that we have a strong mandate from the board, but it is preceded by a clear definition of strategy. So, do you want this preliminary discussion and the preconditions paper? In addition to that, you want to have just another discussion about the direction and the objective? I'm not there to discuss it, but I support that. Based on the discussion this year, it's really not clear that what our objective is. It can be entered in the precondition paper, but not many people read it. At least I haven't. And you should discuss with the new Representative Council. Yeah, not going to the same discussion as before. So please stick to the options that we have. We have 2 options now. So which one of these for the January, February to the next preliminary discussion? Where we'll have this discussion requested by Korpelainen. I don't want to do anything about the definition of the vote, so please, those are the 2 alternatives that we have. Oh, then there's the third option, because if not everyone wants to go through Korpelainen's discussion, then we should have these 3 options, because I don't think that clear states everything. The current price is good, so let's go with it. So let's not define the objectives anymore with the new Representative Council. So if we want to define that, we want to define the objectives again. So it can be in the same option. I think we should have 3 alternatives. Yes, so there's 2 votes. First one, does the current Representative Council want to inform the next Representative Council that they should continue with by what we have done now, the preconditions paper, or do you want to order the new Representative Council to do this kind of, as Korpelan says, to make this a kind of policy before making any decisions? So does this sound good? I'm going to clarify what the question is. So first we will vote on blue slips. So the current Representative Council thinks that the new Representative Council should continue with the precondition paper as we have done now, and based on the discussions we have had. And red slip is that the current Representative Council wants the next Representative Council to start their term by formulating kind of a new in-depth policy, a kind of view on the student center and where we should take it. I don't think we can just talk ad infinitum about these voting alternatives. It doesn't really even affect anything. So the third option, that continue based on our current work on preconditions, but define the direction. Kind of a middle option. Yeah, because they will not redefine it. So yeah, if the red option is that, then yes, of course we'll have a preliminary discussion with the new Representative Council. So yeah, it sounds really apocalyptical, that alternative. Everyone's tired and do we really even need to vote? Do you want to vote on anything, or do you just trust that discussion has been noted down? I want to vote on these issues. Is someone opposed to voting on the things that we have here and taking into account all the points that we have collected? Yes, okay. Already voting on the previous discussion or the ones up on the board? I understand that's what you want to vote on. I want to vote on both things that we've discussed. What are we talking about is that the new Council will use the current thing that we have, will not have a new discussion, or that the new Representative Council will have a new discussion on the objectives and strategy.
Originally, so will the Representative Council, depending on what the first vote tallies, that will give a strong mandate to the work group in operative decisions, or do they want to decide the operative decisions themselves? These are kind of the two. So yes, the work group is satisfied. So first vote, the blue is that the new Representative Council will continue based on the guidelines, the informed guidelines, and the red means that the new Representative Council, taking into account the discussion so far, will have larger strategic policy discussions, and white is empty. Red is the clear majority. So, the second discussion is that the vote on taking into account the decision we just made, that the strategic view will be, strategic policy will be decided upon based on, will the work group be given the hard mandate to make operative decisions? What does operative mean? So, thinking of operative decisions, we have these big picture decisions on what kind of frameworks will this be undertaken, how many boxes and whatever, what amount of warehouse space, etc. Is the question clear to everyone? When we're discussing about represent council, should we ask the community? These are operative decisions, so strongly. Of course, this will be made as much openly as possible. We'll use our light channels. So no single work group, we're not going to shut ourselves in a chamber and come out with a decision to construct with this and that decided. So this is a preliminary discussions. This is not a binding decision. I was thinking of that. It kind of sounded binding. This is a preliminary discussion. This is aimed as a guideline or a source of information for representative council actions. And the next representative council has the discretion to disagree on whatever you decide here today. So, blue is a strong mandate to operative decisions for the work group. Red means that the strong mandate is that the representative council will hold on to the reins. So, blue up now. $20 for blue, red's up now, that's 1, empty's up now. And blue's the majority. Moving onwards, do we have anything else in the preliminary discussions? So, at this stage we've kind of undertaken the discussion as far as we can, that we must move onwards. It's awesome that you do this work. I will not take any request for floor. Then we'll not take it. We've discussed this for so long that there's the possibility to say so much. So, to sum it up, 3 seconds, no. The Representative Council wants all information. So more information to the Representative Council. So, there's been the longest preliminary discussion at the end of the final meeting for this day. So, because it's a financially very important decision. Thank you very much. Lots of good points. And only think like 11 pages of comments. And all has been jotted down. Everything's on video. The votes have been tallied. And hopefully this will be a very, very good starting point for the new Representative Council. And in general, continuation work regarding the Student Center project. Thank you very much. Thank you. And previously, we had the December workshop. We should host the second on the 18th, regrettably, because of timetable constraints. We will not have a preliminary discussion next Monday. It will be moved on to January, because we'll be having meetings on the spatial program regarding the venue facility program, so we don't have the time. So halfway down January, so around the 15th, we'll give more information. Since if we don't have the workshop, I hope that we'll have on social media and the email list, we'll have the information on where we are going. Currently, the member base does not have a chance to discuss, so I hope that AYYE will inform us. But the January is well ahead of decisions, so I'll have to defend the work group here that of course we need to give lots of information out, but within certain boundaries. You see that the program plan was kind of a first draft, so it's not possible to give it out and spread it to the public. So that it won't cause any kind of social media outrages, since people don't necessarily construe it as a work in progress. Thank you. Closing discussions. Moving on to decide. The proposal was that the Representative Council decided to place on record the discussion on the subject of the Student Center. decided as per to the agenda. So decided according to the agenda. Closing item 12, moving to nicer items on the meeting on personal choices. Item 13, completion of the continuity committee. Joona Orpana. Here and discussing the student center project. Will we have enough people present? Could we have like a short toilet break? 5 minutes break. Huhhuh. Nyt vihdoinkin päästiin siihen, missä kokouksissa on kysymys, eli äänestämisestä. The break has ended. It's 19:52, continuing with the meeting. Does anybody want any fresh air? We need the food. Somebody has to fetch them. We're in item 13, continuation committee completion. According to the Article 10 of the regulation, we need to have a continuity committee, which is approved by the representative council. So, present away. So, we need continuation and continuity, what especially was reiterated in the discussion now. That's why we're in the regulation, and we have a policy for a continuity committee. I will not read out the actual text here. But we do not have a size, but it should be about 10 people, or same size as the board. So the continuity committee members can act as mentors, which is very well liked. We have half of the committee are resigning, 5 people are continuing, 5 are resigning, and we might get these people. And we have the people that we have the open applications for the continuity committee have been undertaken, and we have the board's proposals that for the next 2-year term the representative council would choose Atte Harjanne, who has been in the continuity committee for 2 years, Perttu Karjalainen, totally new member, Saana Rossi, Pia Kuosmanen, and Piipsa Penttinen, who has also been in the continuity committee before as well, would be continuing. As a background, that in the applications we had 4 people applying, and 1 out of these 5 gave their consent, so we didn't have any other applicants. In addition, when we are deciding on these people and personal choices, according to the regulations and the rules, we need to decide on the chairperson, and we do not have a proposal for a chairperson in the template because we didn't kind of account it or ask about it in the applications process. So I asked, and would we have people interested, and we've had interest from Jenny Haavisto, from the current members, and out of asking others, they supported Jenny's choice. So I got support from the other members of the continuity committee, and the board did not take, and we couldn't take into the template what we took from the board's chat room, that we could kind of second Jenny for the chairpersonship. She's expressed the interest to develop our actions with the board and is very well motivated to undertake these activities. Any requests for floor? And we will complete the continuity committee. We have 1 person who has expressed their interest in being chairperson, so this is quite straightforward. So we would complete that. Do we have requests for the floor? We do not. As a preparation, I could propose that we can complete this proposal. We have the proposal here on the board with the addition that Jenny Haavisto would be the chairperson for the upcoming year. Moving to decide. So the proposal was, as I said, the people would be continued and completed in the continuity committee. We have people resigning, and the chairperson would be Jenny Haavisto. Decreed according to the proposal. Decided. Closing item 13, moving on to item 14. Congratulations to the continuity committee. And then moving on to item 14, completion of the financial committee. So, we have the law. The Act on Joint Management of Rental Buildings stipulates the following, which is that the residents meeting in the board or another group or the financial committee or another entity of the same, and our regulations state that we have a financial committee with at least 10 members, with certain stipulations on who is part of the board, and chosen for 2 years at a time on the board's proposal, with half resigning. And in addition to this can only remember what was the regulation actually called. Well, this regulation says that AYYE will choose one of the members who is resigning. So in this stage the representative council cannot decide that, but no one can present. So 2 acts of legislation. We have the University Act that and we also have a continuation of the act. Half of which of the members should be students and half experts, and the chairperson should always be a member of the student union. This from the legislation. And then we have the other act that stipulates that in our financial committee 2 of our student union members must be members named by the tenants, so we cannot actually decree 2 of the members, which is done by AYYE, who has not undertaken the meeting to decide. They will have they have not named the second person yet, so we will have one. But on the part of the student union, we need to decide on the chairperson annually. Jukka Havia has been the chairperson for the last how many years? 2 years? And his term will be continuing. Member of the student union as well. Will be continued until the end of next year, and the board's proposal for next year would be that Jukka would continue as chairperson. In addition, Hanna Hiidenpalo and Kari Hatanen and Mika Savolainen as all expert members, specialists who are resigning this year, but we would propose that they would continue once again, and they have all said that they can and are willing. They are very competent. We have 6 applications for the financial committee, and one of these places is under resignations. We have Valtteri Hanen, who is continuing until the end of this year. Based on the applications, we have proposed that Paulus Heikkilä would be chosen for the 2-year term for the financial committee to represent the student union. Those are all the decisions that the representative council will be making, and until the end of next year we'll have Joona Reunanen and Petri Valkamaa, and continuing, and Joonas Tietäväinen as tenant representative Olli Haalaminen. Any requests for the floor? Who is Paulus Heikkilä? What group is he from? He's been the TF board as financial correspondent, and he has been a representative council member before. All right. Does the chairperson candidate wish to say something at this stage? Yes, I wish to state that I've been in the financial committee members from the first moments of AYYE, so I have a longer background than actually 2 years. And as everybody here knows, that this is kind of my passion project, and this is pro bono work, but I am very convinced that if you decide this kind of group, we also have experts of real estate. So we have 3 of our expert members are specialists of real estate. They have a strong background from student union, Valkamaa, Reunanen and Savolainen, and with different focal points. If you're thinking of this upcoming things, counting in the student center project, it's a very good background. And also just stated that in this ongoing term, even though we are doing this work kind of a very small wages, which would be coffee and biscuits, so we can still garner lots of money for the student union that you can use for the student center, for example. from taxation, which is a very good thing. Another thing which is stated here is that we have two leading investor experts of Finland, Hidenpalo, who is in charge of Elo investments, received lots of awards, and Kari Vatanen, who is a sure name with an investment background, who are currently, when I continued, we've ensured, for example, that the value of the student union's monetary funds have steadily increased. And a third point would be the student members here. So this is very balanced. I strongly support, and if you give the support from the Representative Council, I'll do all I can, and we will also, of course, bring our opinions, but we do not want to hinder anything. We try to think of the long-term perspective in a sense. Like for you, you have a 2-year term, it changes every year or every other year. So these kind of background works, and my final words could be that my oldest son will be joining the student union 2018. Any other requests for the floor? There are none. Closing discussions and moving on to decide. The proposal is that the Representative Council appointed members to replace the resigning members and stated the valid composition in accordance with the appendix. So the aforementioned names as specialists, and Paulus Heikkilä as AYYE representative and chairperson Jukka Havia for the Financial Committee, decided according to the agenda, and the proposal decided. Closing item 14, moving on to item 15, completion of the board of the TTE fund. And we have the TTE fund. Regulation section 5 says that the board has a chairperson and 6 other members from the PTK Association's list of proposed members who have an academical degree. And this rests the 3 members, and the chairperson can be decreed and named by the student union's representative council, chosen for 2 years at a time, so 3 terms back to back at most. This is what the TTE fund says, and according to these regulations we will be naming the following people who are resigning. 2 people, no, 3. So do you want to talk about the process? So the student union representatives, we had 3 applications, 1 for chairperson, and which is also the person we are proposing for chairperson. And based on applications and based on diversity, we decided that Sirius Vuorikoski would be the second AYYE representative. And from this applications, if I understood correctly, none of the people who applied are not bachelor or master's degree students, but representatives of AYYE. They should be more than enough. Do we have any requests for the floor regarding this item? Doesn't seem to be. So moving to decide, the proposal was that the Representative Council appointed members to replace the resigning member and stated the valid composition in accordance with the appendix, with Tapani Kivinen and Sirius Vuorikoski with the following compositions: PTK and from AYYE, and as chairperson Jari Isaksson. Decided according to the agenda. Decided. Closing item 15, moving on to item 16, completion of the honorary delegation, the last item as it were, and the greatest. So the honorary delegation and completion of it. We have kind of a rare treat here. This is not something that happens every year. according to the regulations and according to the regulation that we had the honorary council that was made in 2015, who started in the start of 2016, which has now acted for 2 years. Following with these 7 people we have City of Espoo Mayor Jukka Mäkelä, Jorma Eloranto, who's also the chairperson in the honorary council, Sari Poldov, who was mentioned before, Risto Siilasmaa, Ilkka Kivimäki, Helena Hyvönen, and Tiina Alahuhto. So I won't maybe go through all their backgrounds. Here is kind of the background information on the honorary delegation, what does it do, etc. If you not look at the material, at most 12 people in the honorary delegation. We currently have 7, and the representative council deems who will be part of it. Moving on, and on completion, what we are doing, how we reached this point. We decide on the completion on the board's proposal, and at this stage we will always hear from the continuation committee, the financial committee, and the continuity committee on this. And a person can be on the honorary delegation for almost 3 years, for 3 times in a row. So 3 consecutive terms of 3 years. How do we end up here? Is that in the spring, when Jorma Eloranto started the discussions on the steady completion of the honorary delegation, he saw it prudent that the honorary delegation would be completed here by 1 or 2 people, so we could get it towards the maximum size, so that when we have people who are busy people would be big enough but also diverse enough when they meet, so that we could kind of avoid the situation where we would have all of the honorary delegation resigning at some point. This was something that was a kind of the background idea when we set up the delegation in 2015. And here we have the 6 people in addition to the chairperson agreed, and the board decided to think of these profiles, like what kind of people from their background could work in the honorary delegation to the best of their capability. And it was pretty easy in the end that the honorary delegation saw that we could decree that we would like to 1 creative field of expertise and 1 from the finance side of field of expertise to complete the honorary delegation. Also from our backgrounds of our student union. And in addition, it was wished that 1 member would have a background in the student union and 1 would be a woman to also ensure diversity. And the honorary delegation agreed, and we gave the task of thinking of suitable people to me and to the chairperson of the honorary delegation and the secretary general, and we acted as people contacting the proposed people. And based on the preparatory work, the board decided to propose 2 people, which I will also present to you, both of which have said that they are very, very interested in being in the honorary delegation. And also the honorary delegation has currently decided unanimously that they would be an excellent addition. So everybody is in accordance and in agreement and very happy about this. And here I can present these people.
Children's book author, illustrator, that's the programming business, and is very good in that because he's very creative. He's been in Aalto and also in the art school. She's one of the AYYYE's core persons. Still in this ecosystem things. helps in, for example, fundraising. Linda sent this kind of greetings, so I'll read it out, because I don't sound like her. But for you to a kind of background to the selection. Another person, Timo Löyttiemi. So we're in the Independence Day party at the Dipoli. Since current job is in Brussels in the EU crisis solving unit's vice chairperson. And previously has been a CEO at the State Pension Fund. There's a lot of background here, but the most noteworthy ones are that he's from the business school and also alumni from Aalto University, a very active one. And he's also a doctor of economics and also a member of the KAY board. So it's kind of a very extensive background from student unions. I think more accurate, you try to think back on more accurate information back there. A fun detail that Timo added here himself is that he's also been a member of the name committee of the Aalto University. It seems that Timo has lived in Otaniemi as a child, so the region is familiar to him. Even though he is now in Brussels, he visits Finland regularly. And also helps out the student union. So a link also to the EU. And these were the persons, yes. And request for floor or comments on these persons. Yes, I see the blue notes. Yes, very competent people. And more resources for the honor delegation to help the student union in different challenges. No request for floor. Making the decision, the proposal was the representing council completed the honorary delegation by appointing Lindy Liukas and Timo Löyttöniemi. They have a 3-year term. This has been decided. Okay, closing item 16, moving to item 17, other business. Now we have kind of some program before we let you out. So if you have any other business besides mine, we will have them, and then it's mine. And this is for the next year Secretary General and active people. That it would be nice to hear about cooperation negotiations. You could inform the representing council also of this. AYYE has cooperation negotiations all the time. It just means that we discuss about staff issues and things like that. So I don't see that cooperation negotiations are things that should be discussed in representing council. Yes, when we want to reduce number of employees, then we should discuss that. Yes, but we haven't done that. Could the board quickly clarify? I thought about Frank, how did our voices heard? The ownership control of Frank. I've really been able to participate very active in that myself. Kind of opiskelija holding, student holding, the company that owns Frank SYL owns 25% of it, and through that the Secretary General of SYL is member of the management administrative board of Frank. But for next year, so I thought about when they convene the chairperson and Secretary General of SYL that they will discuss Frank from time to time. We don't receive that much operative information because we are not the direct owners. But if you have anything to say to them, then please I recommend you do that, to contact Nora or the Secretary General. One thing that we talked about in the General Assembly was, but we didn't have time to discuss it further, so I don't have any news on that. Was this satisfactory? Yes, thank you. Yes, I have this kind of a respect speech since I've been at the KY Representation Council. I've acted as a chairperson, so I'd like to thank Särkiä for a spectacular, fantastic year. I couldn't imagine a better chairperson than you. Thank you. Thank you. Colleagues' opinions always. It's always appreciated. And this is going to be a rough ride. There have been difficult times and nice times, and sometimes we didn't have quorum, sometimes we did, but it's been spectacular, and I think with this group we've managed to get to the real issues, even though sometimes people talk about strategies and things like that, but we talked about important issues and managed to do things. We have really big issues all the time that we have been discussed, and the board has also been very, very busy. There are a lot of projects during the year. And now here, as a kind of a good bridge to this next issue, we still hope that you could all fill out the feedback form related about this year, about the Representation Council, to give on the next year and the next Representation Council how they can develop their actions, because we are not anywhere near the goal we want to achieve with the operations we have here, the Representation Council. But for me, as I said, thank you every one of you, and please send greetings to all other members of your groups. Thank you for the meetings, and collectively, like I said, this has been great. Thank you. I was being kind of out of myself and then tried to blame it on you, but you've done a great job, and thank you for that. But with the chairperson, Oscar General, we really want to kind of praise these certain people. So a few minutes that we want to give out these awards to certain people. Thanks, Ada and Tapio, if you could come up here. Help me in this award ceremony. If you're giving an award, then please come here, shake hands, and like that. So we'll start with the most important one, because the meetings are at the core of our Representation Council, and probably you also think that it's a big part of the Representation Council's operations. So this is mostly the place where we see each other, and some meetings may be kind of very boring and long, and the chairs in this hall have become familiar to many of us. But now we'd like to remember 3 people who have been here especially many times, who have sat here. So I'd like to call forward 3 persons: Peppi Seppälä, Mika Latvaker, and Teemu Riipi. You have participated most meetings this year. I want to mention that at 300 hours we've been here this year. I'd like to remember you this kind of a tool that could help in sitting, this kind of a seat cushion. I don't want to do that boring to sit. You can also have this. So thank you for your active participation in each meeting. Thank you. But this meeting is one thing where we decide on things, but also before the meetings, a few persons have used a lot of their personal time to make very important preparatory work in the group chairperson meetings. Group chairperson will meet before each meeting and prepare the discussions, and it's very valuable work. And there are some persons there who have participated in them a lot. Has been probably very warm-spirited events, and Tapio has also organized these, so thank you for that. And now when there are no more meetings, we'd like to give Lari Pokonen, Kovanen, Satternuotio, and Dittari who have taken the most part in the most group chairperson meetings. So I want to hear about this food that you have received in the meetings. That's also here, so we see some bananas and Caribbean pasties. Do you remember fill out the Alepa receipts? Yes, just saying. All kind of bodies, organs here, the represent council. And the committees are newcomer. Although they are newcomers, the committees, the members of the committee have done excellent work, so thank you each member and chairperson here. Thank you very much for your work this year. But would in particular like to award one committee that worked and a lot of work for us, used their own resources, understand the project that has been very difficult. And there's so much time, it caused a lot of pain and trouble. So, to reward the advocacy committee for their amazing work this year, especially for the preparation of the policy paper. And to ease your pains and troubles, I'll give you a Finarexin and D-vitamin pills. So if you're a member of the committee, you can come pick them up and give them to other members of the committee. Good, thank you, Advocacy Committee. Now these Twitter things here, a very nice addition for our representational visibility. Thank you everyone who has contributed to that. One tweeter has been very active. Tweeted for the rest of us. So, got our best tweeter, Teemu Riipi. Come here to accept our award. Now his representative term is ending. Will you stop tweeting? But if you will, and if that happens, there's kind of a bird foods that will keep you tweeting. Also during the winter. This may have been for a sex shop because the name is so suggestive. One person who unfortunately is not here, we want to reward them. Our interpreters and OPS are responsible for our infra, but one person has helped a lot in our photographing and cleaning up, Ville Mylle, with his working gloves that this person would have to use them every day. Ville Mylle, thank you. And now we have these amazing interpreters here in every meeting. And been here to produce our English content for international students. So thank you for your work. Also the OBS for making sure that our technology works. And we want to put it on YouTube Thank you. I don't know if you can come down here, but we have some chocolates here for you. I'll give you after the meeting. Let's give a good applause. The last award, unfortunately the person couldn't make it here. This is very serious, this meeting, but also humor is very important. There are different kinds of humor, and this person has managed to lighten the mood of the meetings with this kind of a humor. Okay. Award. Santeri Nuotio with this eggplant. Those were awards. A huge thanks to all of you. And we still have other things to do, but thank you, Tapio and Sade, for your support this year. You've done a lot of work, so thank them also. Okay, I don't think we have anything more. Any other business? Ah yes, of course we have, yes. Board, did you have something? Yes, on behalf of all the board, we want to thank the Representative Council for the 2 terms. And personally, for 2 terms, I've been organizing things for you. Taking them forward, it's been amazing. And as is tradition, in the last Representative Council meeting, the board, in the last item, will show them everyday life outside the meetings, and we decided to do that, make a video for you. And Apple was responsible for making the video this time, so enjoy the quality. The photos are ours, so we have the copyrights. So, yeah, let's start the video.
thank you that we were given this privilege of acting at these tasks. Thank you. No other emerging matters. Closing item 17, moving on to item 18, ending the meeting. The clock is 20:33 and I will end the meeting. Thank you. Saatiin 4 tuntia. Bileet.